Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man with a tattoo of Mr. Rogers just below his third nipple, my brother Mike.
That is America's father, by the way, or maybe grandfather. I don't know. But also, we are identical twins. So if I have a third nipple, don't you have a third nipple?
I don't think that's how the science of that works out. I don't think that's entirely true. I think yours evolved as a result of being part of some sort of experimentation, or maybe you stumbled into a toxic waste dump, but instead of superpowers, you just got this weird growth on your body. That makes sense to me.
And so obviously it has to be a nipple. Non-functioning, of course.
Non-functioning. I mean, your other two have such function, Non-functioning, yes. But anyway, get a look at that tattoo if you ever see Mike at the beach. It's not what you'd think. It's not like, it's a weird one.
It's evocative.
We have a monster episode of Royals Weekly for you this week. We'll talk all about the acquisitions that have been made since our last episode, how the Royals might deploy their pitching staff this season, as it looks like maybe they're transitioning to a new pitch usage model. And then we'll talk about the Royals top 30 prospects list that we've created for Royals Weekly. And we'll ask or talk about what questions need to be answered in spring training. Because, hey, guess what? It's like 2 weeks until the first spring training game, maybe less. Oh, no, it's 12 days, I think, till the first spring training game for the Royals. So that is huge, huge, huge. But first, we have a couple of bits of big news for the Weekly Weirdos. Number one, and this might be the most important one, we're doing a $100 gift card drawing, Q39 gift card. To enter this drawing, all you have to do is leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, either one or both, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. So you can enter this contest 3 times. Leave us a Spotify 5-star rating, an Apple Podcast 5-star rating, and an Apple podcast review, and you are entered 3 times. All you have to do is send a screenshot of your entries to royalsweeklypod@gmail.com. That's royalsweeklypod, P-O-D, @gmail.com. Send us those screenshots and you are entered to win this $100 Q39 gift card. Obviously, we are doing this to draw reviews and ratings from you, but that's okay. We give away some free barbecue. All you got to do is give us a little bit of a rating there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Send it to royalsweeklypod@gmail.com. This is also a way of giving back to you for being such wonderful followers. We really appreciate you listening. Go eat some free barbecue on us. I just had a pit. What is that sandwich we love, Mike? It's like
oh man, it's called the Pitmaster. It is fantastic.
I just had one like a week ago again, and I'm still thinking about it in my brain right now. And so, yes, get yourself some $100 Q39 for free. That's on us. All you got to do, rate, review, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Another big announcement, and I'm really excited for this because this means we get to do more Royals Weekly, and it'll be the first time I've ever been. Royals Weekly is headed to spring training. March 8th through the 13th, Mike and I will be down in Arizona to get an in-person look at the boys in blue, and we'll be putting out an episode every night we're there. Not the first night and the last night, because that's us flying in and flying back. But every night in between that, we're putting out an episode. So you'll get something like 5 episodes that week with us talking about what we're seeing from the team down in spring training. We're going to get in a lot of minor league baseball, a lot of major league baseball. It's going to be a ton of just intense content production from Royals Weekly to kick off the year. We're really excited about it. We really hope you all are willing to tune into us every single morning to hear what we have to say about how the Royals are looking down in spring training. So look forward to that. Put that on your calendars. But other than that, let's move into what's been happening for the last month since the last time we had an episode. It all starts with roster news. That's all they're really doing right now is shaping this roster into what it's going to be for the 2023 season. I think the big sort of splash, I don't know if it's a splash, the big sort of announcement since the last time we had an episode, the Royals have gone ahead and signed Zach Greinke to a 1-year deal worth about $8 million as a base and about, I think, a potential of like $15 million with all the incentives. We'll see if he gets to all that. Mike, what do you think? We've talked a little bit about bringing Greinke back and what you think of it. What do you think now that they've made the signing? You know what the money is. What do you think about the move overall?
I get it. You kind of know what you're going to get with Zach Greinke. He's going to provide you some innings. It'll be really interesting to see what his results are with perhaps a different approach to pitching with the new coaching staff that's coming in. It may help Zach Greinke if they don't allow him to go deeper into games and things like that. But you know what you're going to get with Zach Greinke. It's always going to be a 1-year deal. Looks like we're basically going to get Zach Greinke in our community for the rest of. It seems like this is where he wants to live. I didn't hear about him talking to any other teams or anything like that. So, I completely understand. The interesting thing is, what is this? This narrows down the number of spots for some of those younger pitchers to get starting opportunities. You know, your Heasleys, your Hernandez, your Bubic, those guys who might be fighting now for a single spot. Because if you're assuming Daniel Lynch has cemented one, and Greinke's going to have one, and Lyles is going to have one, and Singer is going to have one. What about Keller? Does Keller get one? I always forget Brad Keller is on this team, by the way. I always forget that he's in the rotation as well. So, it's now narrowing down to where you're not going to have a whole lot of spots. But that may also play into this new pitching approach that we were talking about, where you may stash a Bubic or a Hernandez or a Heasley in AAA and bring them up as needed, kind of a thing. The Rays are pretty notorious, especially in the bullpen, for using their AAA roster pretty much like it's their part of their major league roster. And so if the Royals start doing that, you may see a lot more back and forth than what we're used to.
Yeah, I think the Greinke signing makes perfect sense just because they need innings. They think Greinke can probably give them something like 120 to 150 innings because, he's not young. It's not like he can go out and be that 200 inning, front of the rotation kind of guy he was in his younger days. But you get 200 or not 200, you get 150 quality innings out of him. I think that's right exactly what you're hoping to get. It does narrow what it also does is creates competition for those last couple of rotation spots. Now, I'm not ready to give Lynch one of those spots. You remember going into spring training last year, it looked like, okay, well, Brady Singer is going to get one of those spots. And then he didn't, right? Because he just didn't pitch well in spring training. He was very clearly not ready to be in the rotation to start the year. It might be the same thing with Lynch this year because he's going to be competing with Bubic and Heasley and Max Castillo and maybe Angel Zerpa, maybe Carlos Hernandez, definitely Brad Keller. He's going to be competing with these different guys who have starting experience, a lot of them at the major league level. It's not going to be given to Daniel Lynch, I don't think. And we'll see on that one. Do I expect him to win one of those spots? Yeah, I do, just because I think he's got more talent than a lot of those guys. But essentially we have two spots and about 5 or 6 guys competing for it. And I think that's always a good thing. And anyone who doesn't win it can, of course, go to the bullpen, can be stashed in AAA, all that sort of stuff, as you mentioned. Perfectly happy for the Royals to pay roughly $8 million base and maybe $11 million after incentives. Because if you look at the incentives, they're all innings based, basically. It's like if you pitch, 50 innings, you get another $1 million or $2 million. If you pitch 100, and so every time he gets those, so if he throws anything like 120 to 150 innings, he's going to make $12, $13 million this year, Zach Greinke. But good to have him back. We always love having Greinke stories. We always love having interesting Greinke moments. So great to see him back in Kansas City. Another interesting moment that took place roster-wise, Adalberto Mondesi was traded with a player to be named later to the Red Sox for left-handed relief pitcher Josh Taylor. Mike, you and I have kind of been talking about getting him off the roster in some way. I mentioned the non-tender option. They went with the trade option. What do you think of this trade? Mondesi is no longer a Royal. He is now a Boston Red Sox.
I'm okay with it. He needed a new place to play, right? Because could he have fit into this infield somewhere? Yes. But then you're taking away opportunities from younger guys on a gamble that he's going to stay healthy. So put him with Boston, who needs up the middle help. They'll let him play shortstop, I'm sure, and that'll all work out great. And maybe he stays healthy finally for once in his career, because he was done after this year anyway with the Royals, more than likely. And so, yeah, I think it's fine. The return isn't great. Josh Taylor is another guy who's had injury issues in the past. But when he's been healthy, he's been pretty effective from the left side. And it kind of creates – it was when they started doing that, when they picked up Taylor and some of the other guys that got back in trades, you could kind of see that they were going with a bullpen diversity, guys that throw differently from each other and creating kind of a bullpen that is way more – I don't know, flexible maybe is the way I'm looking at it. I don't know.
What are you doing? Stealing the points that I'm about to make? What are you doing? Get out of here.
Oh, sorry. I should have read your thing.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, play dumb. Oh, I didn't know that it was against the law, officer, to run my car through this Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, who knew? Yeah. Anyway, yes, this is the point that I was going to make on this is that when Mondesi was traded for Taylor, and some of the other moves too, but that's when it really signaled to me, oh man, maybe they're going to try and do something different with this pitching staff. Maybe they're going to try and employ a Rays model on this pitching staff where starters don't go more than 4 or 5 innings typically. Bullpen is highly specialized. So you see guys like Jose Cuas, you see guys like Turner and Sisk, all these lefties that they're getting. That's a highly specialized bullpen. These are guys who can really only get righties out, only get lefties out, or are only good against this type of pitch hitter, only good against that type of hitter. This guy's only good to get ground balls, stuff like that. Highly specialized bullpen usage. And then when they burn those guys out or when they're using them too frequently, they just send them back down to AAA and bring up the next guy, right? Because a lot of these guys have options. And so it's like a carousel of different players coming back and forth up and down I-29 all the time, just getting pumped in and out of that bullpen. That's what it looks like they're going to try and do to me with this pitching staff at this point. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a really encouraging move to make. Excuse me. Because if you can't develop or sign high-level starting pitching, you have to have a different way, right? You have to have a different way to find little bits of value out of your pitching staff. I think this is one of them.
Yeah, I agree. Thing they did. It'll be very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see if that sort of stuff kind of leaks into the back end of that starting rotation. If that way of thinking becomes a little bit more popular, because a lot of the guys that we have in that starting rotation have options as well. And so if you're bringing a guy up and he's going every 5th day and he starts to lose some of that effectiveness, do you send him back down to maybe skip a start or two and then bring somebody else up? If their effectiveness is relatively even, there's no point not to, right?
And they do have a ton of back-end quantity, like a lot of it. Heasley, Bubich, Hernandez, Keller, there's just so many of them. And the weird thing is
Zerpa.
There's a bunch. There's a whole bunch of them. And, interestingly, I think that you're also then giving every guy a chance to show that he's taken a step forward, to show that he's improved in some way. And what's interesting, people talk about the Royals don't have a front end of their rotation. They need somebody to come in behind Singer and stuff like that. It's take a look at what happened last year. It wasn't the front of their rotation with Singer and Greinke that was doing the damage. It was the back end of their rotation that was causing them major, major problems. You can't have a back end with dudes with 5.3 ERAs. That's what it went. 3.45 for the Royals was 5.3, 5.4, 5.2. It was just over 5 ERAs for the whole back 3/5 of their rotation. That just can't happen. You're going to lose a lot of games that way. They're trying to create pitching depth with, quantity of back-end starters, bullpen guys, some of the signings they have. Nope, they are not going to have, the Clayton Kershaws and the Max Scherzers of the world and all that, but they're going to have some pitching depth, and I think they're going to see some benefits from that. Another thing that added to that was when they finally did the thing that you and I have been screaming for them to do for about 7 months now, and they traded Michael A. Taylor. An in-division trade, they traded Michael A. Taylor to the Twins for left-handed pitcher Evan Sisk and right-handed pitcher Steven Cruz, both of them minor league bullpen arms. Although, has Sisk had any major league time? I can't remember. But anyway,
yeah,
I don't think so. I don't think he has, but I think it's has had some AAA time, and people are he's ready to come to the majors. But anyway, Sisk, left-handed pitcher, Cruz, right-handed relief pitcher. They're both relievers. We've been calling for this for a while. Mike, do you like the move? Do you like the return?
So, yes, I like the move and the fact that we've been calling for it for so long, but the problem is I can't help but think oh man, how much less return did you get because you waited 1.5 years to get rid of this guy? There were multiple opportunities along the way to trade Michael A. Taylor for higher value, and the Royals never did it. Now, I know that was the old regime, but it's still your organization. It's still a problem. And so, yeah, the return is, it's okay. I'm not expecting huge things out of either one of these guys, although I think for sure Sisk can be a solid part of a bullpen. I think he's a good acquisition. I think Cruz is more of lottery ticket kind of a thing, but you never know. Sometimes you can get something out of those guys. It looks like up and down the organization, they're preparing for these kind of super bullpens that are diverse, that are large when you consider your major league bullpen and your AAA bullpen. So, I expect to see one or both of these guys at some point this year. And it's whatever. They got value for Michael A. Taylor. That's all you can say. At this point, they had to kind of take whatever they could.
Yeah, I hate that they keep putting themselves in that position. That's like, now you're at the point where you need to take whatever you can get, right? Because they're just losing. They're dumping so much value on these guys. The same thing was true with Whit Merrifield. The same thing was true with, Carlos Santana. You get to that point where, we just have to take what we can get. Got to that point with Adalberto Mondesi. Now, that's a different case because he had so much potential as a player and so on and so forth. But they're just they put themselves into these situations where they have no choice but to take something that seems like lesser than that player's peak value. And this is definitely lesser than Michael A. Taylor's peak value, but, at least they got something for him. And you're right. It does signal, like this year, Royals fans, do not think of the rotation and the bullpen as like major league pitching staff, AAA pitching staff. Just think of it as one big pitching staff because that's how it's going to be utilized. It's all one big pitching staff this year, whether it's in AAA or the majors. It's all one big thing, okay? The one thing it does, the Michael A. Taylor trade, is it does free up some room for some of their younger outfielders to play. They have a ton of those as well with Olivares and Isbell and Waters and Melendez. Looks like he's going to play a lot of outfield. And Nate Eaton could play a great outfield and that sort of thing. They have a lot of outfielders. They need to make a room for him. And Michael A. Taylor, for as well as he's played with the Royals, and he's played pretty well, is not going to be a part of their future. And so good idea to move him, but they should have really done it 7 months ago when you and I said they should have. And everyone else was saying it too, to be fair. They did have a couple of interesting minor league deals as well. Before spring training starts, you always see teams like sign all these veterans and stuff on minor league deals to see who's going to like round out their roster. If somebody's like taking a step forward or something like that. I found a couple of them interesting. They signed a guy, an infielder named Johan Camargo. From the Phillies, I think he was where he most recently played, but he played for the Braves for a long time before that. They also signed a guy named Matt Duffy, who 32-year-old third baseman. Camargo is both a shortstop and a third baseman. He's a glove-first guy, capable of playing short and third. He's been up and down offensively, really, in his career, but he's around a 90 weighted runs created plus for his career in the major leagues. Duffy, known as a good glove guy at third, though his defensive metrics don't necessarily love him all the time. He doesn't strike out too much, but I think he doesn't have a ton of power either. For a third baseman, not a lot of power. And so I think he'll get a chance. Everybody will get a look at third base. The Royals have said they want Hunter Dozier to win the third base job, so we'll see on that one. I'm not really sure about that, but we'll see. Mike, thoughts on Camargo and Duffy? Any minor league deals you like?
I think Duffy's interesting. He might be a guy who can come in and provide solid defense at third base, provide a competent at bat, though you're not going to get a whole lot of offensive production out of him. I think he's the one that interests me the most out of the two. They're minor league deals, so I think they're probably depth in AAA. Just if Dozier gets hurt, or because you don't really want to be playing Nicky Lopez at third base probably every day, or you don't want him getting at bats probably every single day. So maybe Duffy's the guy who comes up if somebody gets hurt, or if, God forbid, Hunter Dozier goes into a Hunter Dozier skid at the beginning of the year and just can't hit the ball, or is showing that he really shouldn't be playing third base anymore, which he probably shouldn't. His defense is not great at third. So I'm a little surprised that they even want to do that. But there's also no room for Hunter Dozier in the outfield either. So what are you going to do?
You know where there is room for him. You know where there is room for him.
Hey, and you and I have been arguing for him to be a bench player for a year now.
The bench is where he belongs, but I don't know exactly what they're thinking. But maybe this is all just PR to try and up his trade value or something. Maybe he has a big spring and they try and move him. I don't know.
Well, and that was the thing I was thinking with these guys, was they may have signed these guys thinking they were going to trade Hunter Dozier, and they just never materialized. And now they're like, okay, well, we've got Dozier. Let's try him out. If Dozier comes out hot in that first 3 months, I could see him getting as a guy who gets moved at the deadline, and then one of these guys steps in.
Anybody willing to take that contract at this point, I think they're like, sold.
Well, if this front office is different than the last one, we still have the questions are still out on that.
They are, but we're getting some evidence that it is. I mean, they've done everything you and I said they should do this offseason. They've been transactional. They've made the trades. They've gone out and signed a couple guys here and there. Like, they've done the things that we basically said they needed to do. Looks like they're going to be at least a little more transactional. I'm actually a bigger fan of the Camargo signing than the Duffy signing. I think Camargo has more value, more offensive upside. He's a little bit younger. He plays shortstop and third base. Can probably play second too. I mean, a guy who could play all around the infield, more of a classic utility player. I think there's a better chance that Camargo makes the major league roster at some point this year than it is for Duffy. But we'll see on that one. Interesting minor league deals. Good job by the Royals getting some guys in here. It's really, really, really important to us that you subscribe, rate, and review, and like and comment on this podcast anywhere you possibly can. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us a comment. Give us a like. It helps us so much, helps more people find the show, and lets us know that you want us to produce more content. That's why we're going down to spring training and putting out an episode every night, because you guys leave us the good subscribes, the good reviews, and we think you'll be interested in something like that. So throw us a thumbs up, throw us a comment or review, something like that. Plus, if you want to, you can get in on this contest for this $100 Q39 gift card by leaving us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then send us a proof of that on to royalsweeklypod@gmail.com. Get you some free barbecue. Who doesn't want some free barbecue, son? We're about to have, Super Bowl Sunday. We're recording on Super Bowl Sunday. Free food there. Get yourself some more free food with this free barbecue gift card. Woo woo! And make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We post a ton of additional analysis, and every day we're just on there wasting our lives away on social media. And you get to get on that analysis if you follow us.
We are terrible employees.
We're headed into the 2023 season, but it's not just the major league guys who will have an impact on the future of the Royals. We know that the Royals rely a ton on development, which means minor league guys coming through, and Kansas City has a lot of prospects poised to help the effort in 2023 and beyond. So Mike and I would like to focus this week's Spotlight segment on the Royals' top 30 prospects, where they're at, and what we'd like to see from them in 2023. We're going to go in depth with we can't go in depth with every single one. We don't have time. We're already 22 minutes into this episode, but we're going to highlight a few of the prospects that we're most interested in. This is the Royals' weekly official top 30, preseason top 30. It is very official. We put it into a spreadsheet and everything. As we know, a spreadsheet makes something much more official and much more math literate.
It's the ugliest looking spreadsheet you've ever seen in your life.
It's a great spreadsheet. But if you want to hear more about any particular prospect, because we're only going to touch on a few of this top 30, if you want to hear more about a particular prospect, follow us and reach out to us on social media, and we'll talk to you about any Royals prospect you want to talk about, because that's what we're into. We're weird people. Let's get started with number 30 through 21. Mike, can you please tell us who 30 through 21 on our top 30 prospects is?
Yeah, no problem. I'll start at number 30. Huh?
Is or R? Doesn't matter. Mike.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Sorry. You're the grammar guy.
I don't know.
Number 30 is a pretty familiar name. We got Freddie Fermin at number 30, the catcher, 27-year-old catcher. He's been in AAA for a long time for the Royals now. Likely to see some major league time at some point. River Town is 29, the 23-year-old outfielder who had some success in high A last year, with the bat especially. Hunter Pattison is at 28. He's a 22-year-old left-handed pitcher who's coming off Tommy John, so we haven't really seen him at all yet, but he's got some potential, if you will. Andrew Hoffman's at 27, 23-year-old right-handed pitcher who was good in high A last year, struggled a little bit in double A, and I believe we got him in a trade last year as well. I don't remember which one.
Drew Waters. That's the Drew Waters.
The Drew Waters trade. Okay. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we traded that pick in the supplemental round for Hoffman and Waters. Hayden Dunhurst is another young catching prospect, 2022 draftee who was a big guy to draft there. A lot of catching depth in this organization, I feel like, and that's a good thing to have. 25 is Austin Charles, a 19-year-old giant, shortstop and pitching prospect,
huge
out of high school. He was a 2022 draftee. The guy's 6'6", people, and there was some debate on whether the Royals would let him play both ways. Though some of the things I've read have seemed like they're focusing on him as a hitter first, but who knows? Beck Way is at 24, the 23-year-old right-handed pitcher. Pitched pretty well in high A last year. We got him in the Andrew Benintendi trade. Jonah DePoto is a 26-year-old right-handed pitcher who has pitched well in Double A in the Arizona Fall League, and we're looking for maybe a kind of a bust-out year for DePoto. Will Klein is a guy that I really liked. He's at 22 for us. 23-year-old, just a hard-throwing flamethrower, huge stuff. I can't remember. Have the Royals moved him officially to the bullpen yet?
I think so. It's hard to tell. Remember. I think so. They were sort of toying with it. It was always kind of known that Klein would be a reliever, but they wanted to give him as much chance to kind of start as possible. But sometimes even when he started, he would only just go like 2 or 3 innings. And then,
yeah. But I was hoping he could stick in the rotation. He did his command and his development of a third pitch, I don't think ever really materialized. Junior Marin, 18-year-old outfielder, very little power right now, but he's got some projectable athleticism. He's a guy that we signed out of Venezuela, if I'm not mistaken. He's got good bat-to-ball skills, but hasn't shown much other than that yet. So he's number 21. That rounds out the last section of the prospects for us.
All right, taking a look at the back third of our list there, Mike. Who stands out to you in that back third? Who do you find particularly interesting, somebody you want to watch a lot or closely in 2023?
Austin Charles is the guy for me, just because of the frame, pretty much. The guy is big. If he can fill out with some muscle, I don't know that he sticks at short in that situation because he is so tall and, when you're that big moving around, although he is a good athlete. He's a very, very good athlete. So, that could be a place that he sticks even if he fills out. But I'd like to see what they can do with him if he gets a lot stronger and can develop that hit tool a little bit. It'll be interesting to see, especially since he's still very raw. The Royals will have 100% opportunity to shape and mold the development of this kid. So I'm excited to see with his big projectable body, his big arm, what he can become.
Yeah, it's tough. Tall hitters always have a difficulty to some degree because, it takes a lot of coordination. There's a lot of stuff going on, arms and legs going everywhere.
But you don't usually see him. Yeah, but you don't usually see him playing shortstop either. O'Neal Cruz is kind of the exception.
The O'Neal Cruz comparisons are going to be they're going to become annoying real fast. And so, yeah, hopefully he shows out tons of potential with a kid like that. But, I just remember watching tall hitters try and hit, and sometimes it can be a little daunting. The guys that I'm focusing on that back third, I chose 2 because I get to cheat whenever I want. Hayden Dunhurst is the one that I'm particularly interested in because lately I've been having a discourse about whether or not I think MJ Melendez is actually the catcher of the future for the Royals. I'm not sold that he is. And I've been sort of having a conversation with people about that. And Dunhurst could be, is what's interesting. He's a defensive catcher taken out of Ole Miss in 2022, a guy whose offensive production dipped in his last year. And as a result, he sort of dropped to us in the 5th round. But he's had offensive success in the past. Mike mentioned, I think on our draft episode many, many, many months ago, that Dunhurst struggles with high premium velocity. But maybe that's something they work on his bat speed. He no longer struggles with premium velocity and that sort of stuff. That's something you can work on, actually. And so it'll be interesting to see. He didn't play much like in professional baseball last year. I think he had 7 plate appearances or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm following him because maybe he is, in fact, the catcher of the future for the Royals. Good defensive skills. You like that sort of thing. Hopefully the rest comes around.
Here's my hot take. When we get a robo-ump, catching defense is going to become the nothing. It's going to be nothing. We're not going to value it hardly at all. And guys like MJ Melendez will become catching prospects because they can catch the ball. And really, it'll be all about can you block and can you throw. That'll be everything.
He can't block.
I think I know Melendez struggles to block.
It's not just block. He has trouble literally catching the ball. Like he has some trouble.
I understand
just catching it.
But it's going to be a weighted thing. Can he be an average catcher when there is no framing involved? If he can and he can hit, you're going to stick guys back there that can do that.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And I think there are other things he needs to be more consistent with, like throwing the ball down to second, especially now that base stealing may become more a part of the game now that they've instituted rules about how frequently you can throw the ball to first. You can attempt pickoffs. And so, he's a little inconsistent with his throws. He doesn't catch the ball that well. He doesn't receive that well. And so I'm just curious, like maybe Hayden Dunhurst is a prospect who has a chance at catcher of the future, and we can just let Melendez play an above-average left field and hit as much as he wants. I also chose Jonah DePoto because I feel like we're sleeping on him a little bit because he's an older prospect, but this dude has incredible stuff. He had 84 strikeouts in 63 and 2/3 innings in Double-A last year. That's incredible. Then he went and just mowed down the Arizona Fall League with 14 strikeouts and 1 walk in the Arizona Fall League. His issue in Double-A was walks. He walked 52 guys in that 63 and 2/3. But if he can harness his stuff, just like Dylan Coleman, we got a guy who can definitely pitch in a major league bullpen. And so I'm interested to see what he can do in 2023. I'll go ahead and give us numbers 20 through 11 for our top 30 prospect list here. Number 20, my boy Drew Parrish. He's a 25-year-old left-handed pitcher. He cruised in Double-A last year, was really dominant at Double-A, but then struggled in Triple-A. Looked like he got out of his mechanics and was doing some stuff that wasn't as effective. At number 19, Samad Taylor. We got him in the Whit Merrifield trade. He's a 24-year-old utility player who sort of plays a lot of different positions. Athletic, but hurt a little too often, and maybe hasn't produced so much with the bat that he would be a major league regular, but could be a valuable utility piece moving forward. At number 18, TJ Sikkema. We got him last year as well in the Andrew Benintendi trade from New York. He's a 24-year-old left-handed pitcher, pitched at Mizzou. He had some success in the minors, though he was hurt quite a bit. Went to Double-A last year and struggled a little bit with Double-A. A lot of guys do, making that transition. But he looked a little better in the Arizona Fall League. Angel Zerpa comes in at number 17, 23-year-old left-handed pitcher. Struggled with his command in Double-A, has made a couple of major league appearances and been okay. A lot of people are super hyped about Angel Zerpa, but most of the time they're people who haven't watched his minor league games. They've only seen him pitch with the Royals, which is only a couple of times. And so we'll see what Zerpa is doing. Still a young guy. Hopefully he turns things around. Number 16 is an outfielder named Diego Hernandez. He's 22 years old. Glove first guy, really athletic. Question is, will he ever hit enough to be a significant contributor at the major league level? We'll see, but he definitely has the athleticism, definitely has the tools, can play a quality center field for the Royals. Coming in at number 15 is one of the only pitchers who had any kind of success for the Royals in 2022, and that's a guy named Noah Cameron. 23-year-old lefty. He's actually from St. Joe, Mike. He's a St. Joeite or whatever they call people from Joetown. He pitched well in 2022, but only when healthy. He also had stretches of injury, and so that hurts. But big-time stuff on that lefty. Interesting pitching prospect to watch. Another pitching prospect who a lot of us had sky-high hopes for, who has just not lived up to that at all, number 14, Asa Lacy. 23-year-old left-handed pitcher, constantly hurt, wildly inconsistent. At this point, has trouble locating any of his pitches. We'll see what the future's like for him. I'm very interested to see what the new pitching regime does. There are new people making decisions in the minor league pitching development, and hopefully they're doing a lot of good work with Asa Lacy. Number 13, Jonathan Bolin, 26-year-old right-handed pitcher, just coming off Tommy John right now. For a moment, he looked like he'd be a really good pitcher to have in the pipeline. Still looking for his top stuff coming off Tommy John, but there's a lot of potential there with his power sinker and a good slider. Number 12, one of our only guests in show history, Alec Marsh. A 24-year-old right-handed pitcher, really good stuff, decent secondary numbers, but was hit too much in 2022. Hopefully taking some steps forward this offseason. Sounded very positive about what he was taking on during our interview. If you want to listen to that interview, go listen to one of our offseason episodes with him and Alex Duvall. Coming in at number 11, Luca Tresh, a 23-year-old catcher, hit well in high A and double A in 2022. Another guy Mike mentioned, part of that catching depth that the Royals seem to have a ton of. Mike, who in that segment, our middle segment, stands out to you as somebody you'd like to follow closely this offseason?
There's a lot of guys that I like in this section, especially the arms. I'm not as high on Noah Cameron as some people, but still very much believe in Bolin. And I like Luca Tresh a lot as well because he's got some pop in his bat along with the defensive ability. But I went with our boy, friend of the show, Alex Marsh. Alec Marsh. Alec Marsh was my guy. Sorry, because you mentioned Alex Duvall.
Alex Duvall, I know. It was a good guy.
So Alec Marsh was very kind enough to come on the show, and he really explained. He didn't shy away from those questions when we asked him some tough ones, which was, hey, your secondary numbers last year were really good, but the actual outcomes weren't great. And so he went in and explained that process and how it was tough for him and to keep working on improving, even though you're not getting the results that you want, you can still see some of those results. And it was a really good explanation. So I encourage you to go back and look at that. He's the one I'm really looking at this year to take a big step forward. I want Alec Marsh to be somebody we're talking about next year as a guy coming out of spring training, possibly earning one of those starting spots in the rotation just because he had such a good year this year. Really seems like a great dude, really pulling for the guy. And then if that happens, then we can talk about like a Royals weekly bump that prospects get when they come on our show. That's what I'm really looking for. Okay.
Yes. I expect Alec Marsh to make major league starts this year because I think they're going to start in AAA. Well, he ended the year in AAA with a couple of good starts, and he's talked about the things he's working on. I think there's a good chance he does well in AAA and then just gets a spot start here or there. I'm not saying he's going to get moved into the rotation permanently or anything because there's a lot of veterans in that rotation at this point. But I think it's definitely possible that he's one of the guys who makes a major league start this year for the Royals. Mark it. Another guy who I think has a good chance of making a start for the major league team this year is a guy named Drew Parrish. He's the one I really like from that middle group, or not like, I'm just really interested in because he did destroy Double-A. He had a 2.13 ERA in 55 innings in Double-A last year, and I watched a lot of those starts. The guy had pinpoint command with his fastball. Nobody could touch his changeup or curveball. It was just a darting in and out and just outthinking hitters all the way up and down. Then he goes to AAA, and if you watch the two deliveries next to each other, his delivery looks different in AAA. It looks like he got hit maybe a little bit, maybe changed some things without knowing it, and then he just could never find his mechanics again in AAA. So the stuff is there for Marsh. He doesn't throw hard. He's never going to be Parrish. He's never going to be a front end of the rotation guy, but he has all that sort of secondary stuff that you want, the secondary pitches, the pitchability, the intelligence to move around hitters and things like that. And so I'm really excited to see what he does in AAA. That AAA rotation could be really, really good with Parrish, Marsh, Coward, whoever ends up down in AAA.
I think his ceiling, you're looking at a guy like Jason Vargas, very similar styles in pitching, not hard throwers, but if you can command the ball and you have decent secondary stuff, I think Drew Parrish can be a Jason Vargas if he can control that, his mechanics and figure out how to get out AAA hitters. I agree. I think he gets at least one start in Major League Baseball, probably in September with the Royals this year.
And Jason Vargas had a very good career, and had some very good years.
Had a great career
for the Royals, especially.
Yeah, and did some like you said, good stuff for the Royals. So excited.
Mike, go ahead and give us our top 10. This is the Royals' weekly official top 10 prospects list.
Official top 10 prospects list. Here we go. At number 10, out of the greater Kansas City area, we got Ben Kuderna. I always want to say Kuderna. Is it Kuderna? Is it something weird?
I'm not a names linguistic. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just going to call him Ben Kuderna then. He's a 20-year-old right-handed pitcher. Hey, Ben. Hey, Cooter. I bet they call him Cooter. I hope they call him Cooter anyway. 20-year-old right-handed pitcher from the Kansas City area. He pitched fairly well in A-ball, some ups and downs. Strikeout numbers were pretty good, but he's still got a lot of polish and work to do before he becomes a consistent starter. But as far as stuff goes, he has, top-level stuff and ability. So maybe you think he's got the best stuff in the organization in minor league baseball for the Royals? Who does?
Asa Lacy.
I'm not even counting him. That doesn't count for me.
Okay.
You can't throw a strike. You don't get to qualify.
No, I don't think it. No, maybe top 5 for Kuderna in terms of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Marshes I think are better.
Yeah, Marsh may be better there. Number 9 is a guy that I'm very excited about in Peyton Wilson, 23-year-old outfielder, probably some second base. He was drafted as a second baseman. Real toolsy, can run, can throw, has some pop in his bat. He needs to work on his approach still, but he seemed to get hot towards the end of last year, so that's probably what pulls him up to number 9 there. Number 8, Frank Mazzucato, the 19-year-old lefty who was our number 1 pick 2 years ago. Real projectable. He struggled in 2022. He's got some weird. There's some guys in this organization that had some really weird numbers. Mazzucato at times looked like he was going to be a guy that could strike out a bunch of people, and at times it looked like it was his first time on the mound last year. Real up and down minor league year for Frank Mazzucato last year. So hopefully we see a lot of development out of him. Number 7, we have him a little lower than some people, is Nick Lofton. The 24-year-old utility guy, can play a lot of different positions out of Baylor. Okay, he may never hit enough to be a permanent starter. His power is about maybe a 15 is the max for home run, 15 to 20, somewhere in there. He runs good, not great. He's one of those guys. If you had to compare him, a lot of people compare him to Whit Merrifield. I don't know if his bat to ball skills are what Whit's were, but he's our number 7 prospect. Drew Waters is our number 6 prospect. Got him in a trade last year. 24-year-old switch hitting outfielder. He's athletic. He's got pop in his bat, but he needs to calm down on the striking out. Even when he got to the Royals last year, those strikeout numbers were pretty high, even though some of the results were good. So it'll be interesting. He'll probably start with the Major League club this year. Number 5 is Carter Jensen, another Kansas City area prospect. 19-year-old catcher. Defense is improving. He hits the ball hard, really hard. We'll talk a little bit more about him in a second. Caden Wallace is the number 4, 21-year-old third base prospect out of Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken.
Arkansas.
No, is it Arkansas?
Yeah, it's Arkansas.
It is Arkansas, you're right. Lots of tools, needs work on his approach. Solid defender, I think a little bit better than what people thought at third. So he's going to be a really exciting guy too. He was a draft-eligible sophomore that we took last year. Number 3, top 3 here, we have Gavin Cross at number 3. Okay. Some people think he's number 1. We have him at number 3 right now.
Some people think he's number 1.
22-year-old outfielder, solid defender, probably doesn't stay in center. He's probably a corner guy, but he hits the ball really hard, and it looks like that power potential may be something that can continue to develop, which is what I was scared about when the Royals took him. I didn't know if he'd ever develop the exit velocities into home runs. So it looks like he might be able to do that. Number 2 for us is Michael Garcia, which is a lot higher than a lot of people put him. He's a 22-year-old shortstop. He's at least above average defender, if not even higher than that. He's got a good approach. He takes walks. And it looks like possibly he's starting to tap into a little bit more power and has physically developed a little bit. He was a guy that you looked at was like a 0 to 5 home runs a year kind of guy. If you can get him to a place where it's around 10, I think you feel like you've done really well. And really more for him, it'll be more about doubles power and stuff like that. So if you can get now the hard part is if the Royals are dead set on Bobby Witt Jr. playing short, Michael Garcia's value goes way down. Number 1 though, our number 1 prospect right now is Tyler Gentry, the 24-year-old outfielder, had a phenomenal year last year with the bat, killed Double-A pitching. He's got a solid approach. He's got surprising power. He's a good defender in the corner outfield. Possible 4 to 5 WAR player, in our opinion. We think Tyler Gentry is going to be quite the performer if they can find a way to get him at bats in the major league level.
Now I hear what you're all saying. You're all saying these people are crazy. Why isn't Gavin Cross number 1? Why is Michael Garcia so high? Why is Nick Lofton so low? Let me explain. Right. I think that there's a significant chance that Nick Lofton will not hit enough to be an everyday major league contributor. Okay. And if you're not an everyday major league contributor, it's hard to put you in the top 5 of a system, definitely in the top 3 of a system. Can he be a useful utility piece? Sure. But there's a chance that he won't ever hit enough to be more than that. And I don't know that he's a good enough defender anywhere to be like an Adalberto Mondesi, whose defense is so good, he's worth 2 WAR just as a defender. I don't think he's not that at shortstop. That's for sure. He's not that in center field. That's for sure. Where's he going to be? Like, he's not a hugely valuable defender at any one position. He's just pretty good at a lot of them. That's valuable unto itself, but it's not top 3 of an organization valuable, And so far, he hasn't hit enough at any level for me to say, oh, this guy's going to hit real well in the major leagues. No, I think there's a decent chance that he never hits better than something like a 90 weighted runs created plus in the major leagues. which isn't an everyday player if he's not really good defensively somewhere. And so I'm not as high on Nick Lofton as a lot of people are. What about Gavin Cross? Me putting Gavin Cross at, what do we have him at, Mike? 4?
3. We had him at 3.
3. That's pretty good. Not putting him number 1 is not a reflection on Gavin Cross. It's just that I think that Tyler Gentry is my number 1 because I think he's what we hope Gavin Cross is in 2 years, right? But he's already doing it. He's already producing at the AA level. He's already doing a lot of things in terms of walk and strikeout rate that we hope Gavin Cross gets to, right? And so we don't have to hope on him. He's already doing it, And so I'm willing to prize or to sort of reward guys for having performed more at the upper levels of minor leagues and having that track record in the minor leagues than I am to say, because Gavin Cross is the hot new pick. He's the first round pick. He's so good. No. Show me the guy who's done it already. Show me the guy who's already performed in minor league baseball. That's why Maikel Garcia is above him too. Maikel Garcia is one bump in his power away from being a 4 to 5 WAR player consistently because he has the defense at shortstop. He just needs to hit the ball a little bit harder. And who knows, he may be there already from what we're seeing out of winter ball from him, right? And so if he takes a tick up in his power, and he's still young, 22, 23 years old, a tick up in his power, and he's a 4 to 5 WAR player, 2 ticks, and he's like, really, really good. And so I think that it makes sense in my mind to rank those guys a little higher than Gavin Cross, who just doesn't have the track record. Same with Caden Wallace.
Yeah, and actually, I'm a big fan of Carter Jensen. He's a guy that has really surprised me coming out. I didn't realize how hard he would hit the ball consistently in his first year playing. And the defense is better than what a lot of people thought it was going to be. Keith Law came out with his top 20 Royals list this past week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember what it was now. And he talked in there about how Carter, like industry people were saying, Carter Jensen's defense is above average, which they thought it was going to be something where he had to move to another position because his bat was going to move a lot faster than those defensive skills. And so we always knew he had a big arm, but he lacked in some of those other things. And he has improved those so much that now people are saying his defense is above average. And so above average with how hard he hits the ball is a special kind of guy. Now, he needs to work on getting more loft, and I think Keith Law mentioned a little bit about being a little too pole happy in that article that he had. But if you look at like his exit velocities and things like that, or just watch, and you're like, oh my gosh, a 19-year-old, or actually he was 18 at the time, playing at that level, who is a year earlier was hitting balls in Parkville, was just crushing the ball, and it's like, oh my gosh, the potential is so high for him, and it seems like the work ethic matches that. So maybe down the road we can get old Carter Jensen on here, give him the Royals weekly bump when he needs that. That's good. I want to get him on here, do that. So it was. I'm really excited about both Gentry and Carter Jensen, both of them.
Yeah, I'm a big Gentry guy. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that. Just a real quick case for why he should be number 1 and why we like him so much. The guy hit 326 as a batting average in last year between high A and double A, 422 as an on base, and 542 as a slugging. Those numbers didn't dip at all when he went from advanced A to double A. He just kept hitting. 20% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate, just a consistent guy. And I think it's that approach, his really good approach, that's going to allow him to continue to transition to AAA and then the majors without much dip in his performance. That's what I'm really looking for. Like what I'm projecting for Gentry, 4 or 5 WAR as a player at his peak, but I think his peak can last for a while. He's a 55 grade defender. He can play right field. He has a strong arm. He can hit. Like, what isn't there to like about this guy? I know we're looking for superstars sometimes at the very top of our lists, but I'm also willing to put guys up there, especially in a system that I don't think has a lot of potential superstars in it, or maybe any, right? Maybe Jensen might be one, but I don't think there's a ton of potential superstars in the Royals list. I'm willing to put guys at the top who look like, to me, there's a really good chance they're going to be not superstars, but really good players for a long time. Mike, let's take a broader picture of this system real quick before we move on. What do you think of this system as a whole when you step back and look at it from 30,000 feet?
I I honestly, I have a pretty positive approach to this system right now. It's not the jacked ones that we saw in some of the years of the Dayton Moore years with the high end talent. I think you have really good hitting depth in the organization that you're like, hey, especially, at catcher, there's certain areas, catcher, outfield, I think the depth is really good in some of those spots. The negative is our overall pitching depth is bad. It's not average or so or below average. It's flat out bad. There's some guys I like. I still like Bolin, but he's coming off injury. I like Alec Marsh a lot, but he's coming off of a year that had some shaky results. Drew Parrish the same way. There's some of these guys that I really like their profiles, but even those guys, you're like, I like your profile a lot, but I haven't seen the results yet. That's as good as you can say about guys. That's the best you can say about them.
It's weird to me that you could say the same thing if you were on Tinder or something like that. I like your profile, but I haven't seen the results from you right yet.
I never took it to that place, you weirdo.
I don't know why that popped in my brain, but I'm like, oh, we could say the same thing about dating, I guess.
Well, I don't know the swiping right versus swiping left. I don't know which one is good or bad. You were married
before that was all a thing.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, but there's some guys I'd swipe right on if that's a good thing. I don't know
if that's a good thing. I don't know.
But there's a lot of the pitching prospects, especially starting pitching prospects, don't move the needle for me. So we need help there. But overall, it's not I don't think it's a bottom 5 organization right now, talent wise.
No, it's not. I agree with you. Like there's a lot of depth in this organization, which is what I agree with Keith Law too. This was his assessment of the org as well. There's depth in the organization, especially hitting wise. And while you see the pitching as like a negative, I'm going to put on my optimist hat and I'm going to see it as an opportunity. That's what you say, right? It's not a negative. It's an opportunity. And so
it's an opportunity to get better.
They've been so bad. It's an opportunity to get better. And so, but it's not like there's not talent there, right? Like there's arm talent. These dudes can throw. Some of them can spin, so on and so forth. What they need is somebody who can develop them. When they find that person, the pitching will get better. I promise. The pitching will get better. Frank Mazzucato will get better. Ben Caderna will get better. Jonathan Bolin will get better. All these guys will get better. So there is an opportunity over there with the pitching, but you're right. Right now, it's just we haven't seen anything from the pitching. It's just an opportunity. And if they don't get better, if the people they have in there now to do the pitching development aren't better than the previous group, then that opportunity will be wasted. The offseason is coming to a close, but the Royals still have plenty of questions left to answer before opening day. Luckily, they have spring training to see more from young players and make some key decisions. I want to dig into some of the questions that we think the Royals will have to answer before the end of spring training. Mike, what's the most important question you think they need to answer before March 30th?
I got to go with the starting rotation. How will the starting rotation shake out? Who makes all those 5 spots? And really, honestly, who are the next 3 guys behind them? I think all of those are important questions to answer and will ultimately be the thing that determines how well the season goes. I don't think we have anybody to the point where it's like, okay, well, we can win 95 games. Yeah. But I think, I don't know. It'll really change your outlook on this. If they stock that starting rotation with like all the veterans that they have, I don't know that it's going to be as exciting to watch the development of those young guys because they'll all be in AAA. Kowar's probably certainly going to AAA. But if Lynch doesn't win one of those spots and he starts in AAA and Hernandez is in AAA, like let's say Bubic wins the 5th spot and the other 4 are taken by Keller, Lyles, Singer, and Greinke, then like there's no development going on there other than maybe Singer. The rest of those guys I think are just what they are. And so it'll be interesting to see. Spring training, especially for the starting pitching staff, is going to be very interesting to me.
Yeah, it will be. And the weird thing is you don't want to base a lot of your decisions on spring training, but they've also kind of put themselves in the position where they have no choice but to do that, right? And so the thing that I'm most interested in, or the question that I'm ready to answer, is how will coaching changes impact the team? And we mentioned pitcher usage. That's a big one for me. Like, we won't see it in spring training because spring training is all about guys getting their work in and stuff like that. But will we see some guys coming out trying new pitches? There's been word of Keller trying a curveball. Will we see what Sweeney has been working on with some of these guys? It'll be interesting to see sort of how coaching changes are impacting the team in terms of who's going to play where, who's going to get to play, all these sorts of things.
I tell you a question I still have, and I want to see it looked at in spring training. How much is Singer throwing that changeup in spring training? That's still a question to me.
Might as well have him throw it a ton in spring training. Like, work on it there. That's where you work on pitches. Work on that changeup. How does it look coming out of the offseason? I'm really curious to see what that changeup looks like. Have they helped make it better? Has a private organization helped make it better? Somebody, because that changeup's going to be really important and really interesting. Any pitches. Lynch, what's the fastball look like? Like, has he tried a different one? Are they going to have him do different things? All these sorts of questions are about coaching changes, really, and the impact of them.
And Keller, too, is he leaning on the 4-seam or is he going to the 2-seam? Like, I really want to see what he's doing there. I have a personal opinion on what I think he should do, but I want to see the results that what the staff has gotten him to do or what they think is best for him.
Yeah. Any other sort of things that you're looking forward or questions you're really looking forward to answering as we look at spring training?
Yeah, I've got a million, by the way. You stole one of mine, by the way, and then I had to come up with another one on the fly, like right before the show.
Luckily, but it was you have a million.
I got like 40 of them up here. Can Singer have a first half this year that mimics his second half last year? Can he continue being a guy who looks like the leader of this rotation? At times, it has appeared like he's a little bit – I don't want to say – it's wrong to say mentally weak because I don't think that's right. But I think he can sometimes get in his own head. I hope that doesn't happen coming into this year. I hope it's a fluid continuation of the things that were happening the second half last year. And then he just carries that into the start of this year with the devastating 2-seamer, the really good slider, and then hopefully mixing in that changeup well.
Yeah, I hope that's the case too. I'm sort of asking a question more about coaching, and that is, how will Cotero find time for all these young players? They have so many young players that they need to get time for in this lineup, in this rotation, in this pitching staff, and things like that. How will Cotero find time for these guys? Isbell and Waters and Eaton and Olivares and Melendez in the outfield. They got 4 or 5 guys they need to find time for in the outfield. They got Michael Garcia and Bobby Witt Jr. Nicky Lopez isn't really young, but they need time for him, and Michael Massey and Vinny Pasquantino and Nick Prado. There's just so many guys they need to find time for, both during spring training, and then they'll have to find time for them in the regular season. How's he going to do it? What's rotation going to look like? What's platooning going to look like? They probably won't platoon much during the spring training, but it's just interesting to me to see, like, what are the different combinations Cotero comes with to play with in spring training.
Yeah, and I don't know that he may actually platoon a little bit in spring training. A little towards the end just to see what it looks like. But yeah, it's going to be crazy to see how that outfield shakes out. Where is Hunter Dozier going to play? Is he actually going to be their everyday third baseman? Is that really going to happen?
Maybe that should have been our number one question. Is he actually going to be their third baseman? We got to answer this question. Is he actually going to play third base? Oh,
should be fun to watch.
That. No, it will not be fun to watch. Please don't make me.
Yeah, it's going to be such a wild spring training. I mean, I even have questions about like the broadcast.
I want to hear Jake Eisenberg.
Or whatever.
He's great.
Yeah,
I've listened to a ton of his AAA games. He's great. I can't wait.
There's just so many questions when you change out the front office and the whole coaching staff and all that stuff. And with all the guys we've traded, it's just there's so many questions about spring training. That's why I'm excited to get down there with you and experience it. Big thanks to my in-laws who are letting us stay at their place for free. It's going to be fun. I'm excited for spring training. Now, I'm not excited because how are we going to watch baseball games? Does anybody know yet?
We'll get to that. That's another thing.
Does anybody know? Okay.
We'll watch.
You and I can battle that out later. Like, how are we going to watch these games?
We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with our Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, you've got a whole month worth of stuff saved up to talk about, and yet somehow I can't really discern what you're talking about today. Let us know what's happening to you outside the world of baseball.
I did have a couple of things to put in there, but I was cruising through Twitter last night, and I kept seeing stuff about, hey, partying down here in Phoenix. I'm like, what the heck? And it just like dawned on me, oh my gosh, Phoenix, Arizona, right now, at the end of February and beginning of March, or back half of February, beginning half of March, is like the party capital of our country. Okay? They just had the Waste Management Open. Do you know what that is? It's the Animal House of golf tournaments. It's insane. Okay? They are about to have the Super Bowl today. Unreal, right? Spring training's getting ready to start down there. Crazy fun time, which Mark has never been to spring training, but I have. When I went down there with my wife, it was just a party. We just partied the whole time. It was great. This is before we had a kid. And so, yeah, like, I mean, who knew? Arizona State is there. Arizona State's like only known for being wasted and taking 7 years to get a business degree. So like this is unreal. When did Phoenix, Arizona become the place to be?
Hey, the geriatrics know how to do it, my man.
I guess.
They pop a Geritol and they get out there and do keg stands day after day.
Okay, so my in-laws, they live in like a retirement community down there. My mother and father-in-law and my wife's grandma. And like if they didn't live in that community where everybody was like 70, they would, I'm sure, like I'm wondering, there's got to be a bunch of people who actually live in Phoenix that are just pissed all this stuff is happening at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I would think. Like they have to be, because it's got to be a madhouse.
Terrible now.
I'm sure it is.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it is a party downtown. We've kind of gone this whole episode without talking about the Super Bowl, really. The Super Bowl is tonight.
The Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl.
Of course, right? But we wanted to be available right after that. So you guys say, let's kick off baseball season. And we don't know what's going to happen tonight. We don't know if they've won or if they've lost or anything like that. What we want to do is raise your spirits if they've lost, or get you even more jacked if they've won. Yay, it's baseball time. Yay. But yeah, it will be the Super Bowl. They will be crazy down in Arizona. I'm sure people are going to be having lots of fun. Let's remember it's a game and let's not hurt anybody.
Including yourself.
Including yourself. Win or lose, let's not do anything to get anybody hurt. Okay. But yes, Phoenix, Arizona, Party Central. I'm talking about a TV show that I've started watching recently because like 2 days ago, I was watching an episode of it and I laughed so hard. I thought the thing that was said was probably the funniest joke ever written. I don't know why. Probably because it snuck up on me, as a joke. It just really snuck up on me. So in the episode, Martin Short, the name of the show is Only Murders in the Building. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's on Hulu. It stars Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez.
Hilarious show. Love it.
It is really funny at points, right? Some of it, sometimes it's like it kind of not drags, but it's just not as funny at certain points. And then other points, it's very funny. But the joke that killed me, man, it just floored me. Martin Short gets into an elevator with Sting, the musician. Sting, right?
From the police.
Yeah. And he's got his dog with him, and his dog is all up on Sting getting in his business. And Martin Short goes, Winnie is the dog's name. Winnie, don't stand so close to Sting. And I just died laughing. I could not stop laughing.
For our non-police listeners, there was a song called Don't Stand So Close to Me.
Close to me.
Sting was the singer of the band, so yeah. Don't stand so close to me.
You just killed me. I'm laughing about it still. I just can't. It's too good. That's too good of a joke.
Steve Martin and Martin Short are a license to print money. Those guys are just hilarious in everything they do. It's fantastic.
The thing that has surprised me about the show is how good Martin Short is in it.
Yes.
There are times when Martin Short is just a little too much for me, it's just, he's too over the top or whatever. But the character they've written is perfect for him, for one. Those moments are over the top, but it plays into his character. And then he also has moments where he's not doing that, where you get to see really moments of great acting from him about embarrassment and shame that he feels about certain things. And it's really good. It's just a really good show. It's funny. It's light. It's there's a mystery element to it. It's about true crime podcasting or whatever, but I highly recommend it. I'm sorry I ruined that joke for you, but I just had to tell it to you because it'll still sneak up on you. It'll still be funny. But man, it is so funny. There are a couple times where I have just been laughing out loud with this show. Anyway, that is all we have for this episode. It has gone on for quite a while. We try and keep it shorter than this, but we had so much to talk about. Good luck to the Chiefs tonight in their Super Bowl. We're hoping for a big Chiefs victory. We will be watching. We will be glued to our televisions. Hopefully you all have a good time watching that Super Bowl tonight. Baseball season starts tomorrow when this episode will air. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals and Chiefs.